This week's parasha, Parashat Ekev. Moshe Rabbeinu is continuing with his musar to the Jewish people. We said all of Sefer Devarim is the last month of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, the last 36 days where he's giving us musar. He's giving us the deep ideas we have to know and realize, the advice to make it in the land of Israel. And this week's parasha, there's one theme that keeps coming up over and over again throughout the parasha, the theme of yirah, of fear, of awe, of reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I want to focus in this Dvar Torah on the Shla Kadosh, on our parasha. The Shla Kadosh speaks at length about this midah of yirah and deeper hints that come out of the parasha and other chazals. B'ezrat Hashem, let's try to skim through it because it's a long piece. So let's try to skim through some of the more key parts that we can relate to. And he starts off with a pasuk from Kohelet. Kohelet closes off with the famous pasuk, Sof Davar Kol Nishma. In the end of the day, the sum of it all, when all is said and done, what's the key lesson? The sefer over there is pretty somber. It talks about the Hevel Havalim, the silliness of many parts of life. So ultimately, what's it all worth? What is life all about? What should we be striving forward? What's it really? At the end of the day, the sum of it all. Et Elohim yirah bet mitzvotav shemor ki zeh kol adam. To revere God, to fear God, to keep His mitzvot. That's what man is. This is what humanity. This is what it's all about. Yirat Hashem and keeping the mitzvot. Now, yirah, this being the ultimate goal, the Shla Kadosh explains that the yirah that we're speaking about right now is not the word yirah of fear of like punishment. That's an important level at an earlier stage. We have to fear. We have to be serious about life. Realize that there's punishment. Realize that there's onish. Yirat onish is very important as part of our avodat Hashem. But that's not what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about instead is the awe, the reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, recognizing the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Shla Kadosh. So he starts off again with our pasuk. Sof davar kol nishmat Elohim yirah. In the end of the day, what's it all about? It's about fear of a God. Hine mitzvah zo shel yirat Hashem. This mitzvah of yirat Hashem, kmo shene'emar, it says in our parasha, Et Adonai Elohecha tira oto ta'avod, that we're supposed to have yirat Hashem, we're supposed to revere Hashem, we're supposed to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's one of the pasukim in our parasha. Hi mitzvah klalit. This is a very big mitzvah, kolel harbe inyanim. There's so much involved in Yirat Hashem. Eventually, he's even get to Ahavat Hashem, the love of Hashem. But let's speak about the Yirah part. Al ken etchil ba, and that's why when speaking about Yirat Hashem, we have the other famous pasuk in our parasha, Va'ata Yisrael, now the Jewish people. Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel me'imach. Moshe Rabbeinu is giving us musar. What does Hashem want from us? Ki'im liyirah, except the fear. All that Hashem wants. There's one little thing that Hashem wants. He wants Yirat Hashem. He wants us to fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to revere HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, we know all the Mefarshim say, okay, maybe for Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a very small thing, yirah. For us, to get to yirah, it's like a really, really big deal. But ultimately, that is the goal. We want to get to this level. Now, the question is how, what's it all about? What is this whole idea of yirah? So skipping a bit in the Shla Kadosh, says the Shla Kadosh, Umi shemevin umasig beyoter migadlut Hashem itbarach, az hu yoter yirah Hashem. Do you want to know how to get to a great level of Yirat Hashem? It's by recognizing, by understanding, by learning the greatness of Hashem. The more that we can focus and try to understand how much and how awesome HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, that's going to lead to more Yirat Hashem. And there's no end to how great HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, because the more you can learn about the greatness of Hashem, the more you're going to get there. And that's why the pasuk says, Ekev anava yirat Hashem. If you open up Mishlei Perikaf Bet, pasuk Dalet, it says, Ekev anava, the heel of humility, Yirat Hashem. Okay, what does that mean? The heel is humility. What is that? There's actually a couple of Mefarshim. Rashi gives two approaches. Bishvila anava, Yirat Hashem ba'a. He says, first off, because of humility, when a person is humble, then the Yirat Hashem is going to come. Davar acher, anava ikar, vayirat tefela, va'akevla. The other approach says, that Ekev Anava, that's really the great heights we want to get to. The beginning part of Anava, the Ekev of the Anava, is the Yirat Hashem. Okay, fine. So that would be that approach. Comes along the Malbim, the Mitzudat David. They both kind of say that if you want to get to this level of Anava, you have to have yourself this pondering, like the Shla Kadosh is saying, about how awesome HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. Because when you understand the Gedulah of Hashem, the greatness of God, then eventually we're going to realize how small we are. And when we realize how small we are, that's going to bring to Yirat Hashem. And it seems to be a little bit of a debate. Is the Yirat Hashem the first part is anava, the first part, but you're going to get to these two midot of yirah and anava, which seem to be very linked because ekev anava yirat Hashem. Okay, so says the Shla Kadosh is pshat ki biyoter shehu yareh Hashem hu biyoter anav. So he's learning the more yirat shamayim you have, the bigger your anava is going to get. Klomar, which means ביותר שמשיג בגדולתו יתברך, אז ביותר יודע שפלותו, כי במה הוא נחשב. לכן סיבת הענווה הוא ידיעת יראת Hashem. So he's learning that Yirat Hashem, fear of God, awe of God, is to recognize the greatness of Hashem. And the more you recognize the greatness of Hashem, the more you realize that that humbles you. It makes us more humble, realizing how great Hashem is and how small we are. וביותר שהאדם הוא גדול והוא חכם, הוא מבין ביותר, and then therefore the wiser the person, the more he understands Hashem, הוא ענב, he's going to be bigger humble. ולפי גדולתו, ענוותנותו. And based on a person's level of gedula, that's where his anava is. Again, because the greater we are in our understanding of Hashem, the greater we work on it, the greater we try to accomplish it, the greater the skills of someone, or that's going to be the greater anava. Because the more you grasp, the more you realize that you can't really grasp. The more you realize how much you're lacking when it comes to the infinity of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, or at least the way Hashem relates to us. כמו שאמרו, as they say, תכלית מה שנדע ושלא נדעך. He says the goal of what we're supposed to know is to know that we can never really understand God. And then based on this, who is the greatest person that we know to ever live? It's Moshe Rabbeinu. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu understood Hashem to levels that nobody else. He was the one who understood the greatness of Hashem more than anybody else. He's also going to be the most anav of anybody in the world. And because those two midot go together. The more you get closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu, the more you understand, the bigger, the humble, the more humility you're going to have. Now, interestingly enough, that now it goes hand in hand. That the greater the person, the more humble he becomes. And the more humble he becomes, the more Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring his Shekhinah onto that person. And he says this happens if it's coming through Yadiyah, if it happens to a person humbling himself through recognizing God. He says this also happens through those that are lower on their own. Like an Ani, B'Shafel Ruach, the lower people in the world. It says that Hashem runs away from the Ashirim, the rich people. Hashem doesn't want to be anywhere near. Hashem is looking for the lower, whether it's lower because he understands the greatness of Hashem and made himself humble and understanding, or even if because life, was difficult for the person, and that difficulty in life made it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to get close to him. In one of the earlier footnotes, they bring down the Shlach Kadosh that when it comes to Rabbi Akiva, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu was so close to Rabbi Akiva because he comes from the Gerim, he comes from the converts. His grandfather was a convert, and therefore, the converts is part of the category, the Almanah, the Atom, and the Ger. They have it harder. They don't have a family. Life is difficult. They don't have land, and they're the poor. They're the ones that are more outcasted. And we know that Torah says, "V'hafta tager." You have to love the converts. It says that more times than it says about the Chakamoch only once. V'hafta tager. It says more. And maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is practicing V'hafta et tager when he's dealing with Rabbi Akiva. Now you have to realize Rabbi Akiva himself was extremely humble, as his name Akiva itself is Akiva Ekev Aleph. He himself has that, or Ekev Hey, depending on the Aleph and Hey. We spoke about it in the past. But we have ourselves the root of Ekev again. This Ekev Anava is going to be in the Rabbi Akiva as well. וזהו שאמר רבי יוחנן, that's what Rabbi Yochanan said in the Gemara Megillah, Daf Lamed Aleph Amar Aleph, וכל מקום שאתה מוצא גדולתו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, wherever you find the greatness of Hashem, actually in our gear says גבורתו של Hashem, but whenever you find this great level of Hashem, שם אתה מוצא ענוותנותו. That's where we're going to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu's anava as well. That's where we're going to find the anava, the humility and the greatness. They're going to go hand in hand. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come to the anavim. Hashem himself is going to put himself together, either come down to them in Olam Hazeh or bring them up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Olam Haba, based on the gear says in Chazal. But ultimately, anava is the source, is the root, is the area, is the way to get close to the Shekhinah HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But Ba remez ha'anava, beyeter said the parasha zo, and he says that's why in our parasha it's going to keep speaking about hints. There's ramazim to anava throughout the parasha. So our parasha speaks about Yirat Hashem all over, and then it speaks about anava because they go hand in hand. But so far we're going to have anava throughout our parasha. Our parasha is called Parashat Ekev, the heel. Why the Ekev? Because Ekev is a hint to Ekev Anava. So in the very beginning, you have a remes to Anava. Then we fast forward. It's going to speak about when we're going to come to the land of Israel, and we're going to be successful, and we're going to eat, and we're going to drink, and things are going to be very great. And then then the Moshe Rabbeinu warns us, Veram levavecha b'shachachta. You're going to become very haughty. Don't become haughty. He's here b'meod al hakata ge'ava. So later on in the parasha, and towards the middle, it speaks about don't be a ga'ava, meaning be humble, the exact opposite. And then towards the end of the parasha, it starts speaking again about the greatness of Hashem. What does Hashem do? Ki Hashem Elokechem, Hu Elokei Elohim. And then we fast forward, and part of the advice, but Oseh Mishpat Yatom ve'almana. Hashem is going to find himself with the lowly. He's going to help them. He's going to be there for them. Says the Shlach Kadosh, quoting a Gemara in Chulin. First off, our parasha starts off, Ekev tishme'un, ma kativ lemala parasha. So what does the parasha speak about right before? Lo me'ubechem mikol amim chashak Hashem bachem ki atem hame'at. Before, the pasuk tells us that Hashem loved us specifically and really looked out for us because we were the small. We spoke last year at length about this concept that we are the me'at, we are the small. Our numbers are always going to stay small. The 70 nations, the 72, the 69, the 65. We spoke about different numbers about how small we get to. Amar Rabbi Yohanan, it's the Gemara Chulin that Peitet Amar Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yohanan, Mishuri Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon. Kol makom shata motze devrav Rabbi Eliezer beno Rabbi Yossi Aglili b'Haggadah. Whenever you're going to find a statement of Rabbi Eliezer, son of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, listen to it. Aseos necha kafar keset. Make your ears like a funnel. Listen to these words. He knows what he's talking about. Because says Rabbi Eliezer, Lo meubechem mikol amim chashak Hashem bachem. Hashem didn't pick us because we were so great in numbers, rather because we were small. Amar lam HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, says the Gemara, says Rabbi Eliezer. Choshkani bachem. Hashem says, I desire you, I want you, I choose you. Why? Because you're dafka, the fewer. Shafilu b'sha'ah shani mashpia lechem gedula. But what does it mean that we're the ma'at? We're the little. What does that mean? We're the lesser. What does that mean? Because even in moments when I make you, when I give you, I make you guys so great, and I bestow gedula on you, atem b'matim asinachem lefanai. You still diminish yourself, you humble yourself, you bring out that anava, and that's why Hashem loves us so much. Natati gedula la'Avraham, says the Gemara. I gave gedula, I gave greatness to Avraham Avinu. Amar lefanai v'anochi afar va'efer. And Avraham responded, I am but dust and ashes. LeMoshe la'Aaron, I gave greatness to Moshe and Aaron. Amar v'anachnu ma. And they said, what are we? V'nachnu ma. We are ma. We are. What are we? We're nothing. David Amar v'anochi tolat v'lo ish. And David HaMelech said, I am but a worm and not a person. So you see the humility of Anochi afar v'efer, v'nachnu ma, v'anochi tolat v'lo ish. We have Moshe, we have Avraham, we have David HaMelech. But when it comes to the non-Jews, and it goes on to show you how Nimrod, the Nebuchadnezzar, Sancherib, and different Risha'im in our history that did terrible things to us, Hashem gave them greatness, and they just took it and wanted more and more and more ga'ava. Amar Rava v'itema Rabbi Yohanan Gadol shenemar Moshe v'Aaron yoter mima she'amar Abraham. He says that you should know what Moshe and Aharon said, that they said Nachnu ma, that's greater than Avraham. The ilu b'Avraham kativ anochi afar v'efer, because Avraham said, I am afar v'efer, I'm but the dust of the earth. V'ilu Moshe v'Aaron kativ v'nachnu ma, what are we? And that's considered to be an even greater, that's even lesser than afar v'efer. For Avraham, there's a something. This is even less. So Moshe Rabbeinu is considered to be even greater, and says the footnote here in my Shlach Kadosh, quoting B'Sefer Shar Otiyot. So this is that's B'Zeu Sod, that Moshe Rabbeinu is called Anav Mikol Adam. He is the most humble of all Adam. Because what is Adam? Ki Adam is Rashi Tevot, Avraham, David, and Moshe. The different examples in our Gemara, Moshe is Anav Mikol Adam. From if you take each one saying their humble statement, Avraham and David HaMelech and Moshe Rabbeinu wins out. Him and Aaron saying Nachnu ma is considered to be like one of the highest levels of anava that we could find. And then this section of the Gemara closes off. He says that the whole world is mitkayem because of Moshe v'Aaron. Kativ hacha, it says v'nachnu ma uktiv hatam tole aretz al belima. So it says over here that they call themselves Nachnu ma, and then it says over in the other pasuk in Eov, he hangs the earth upon nothing. Hashem hangs the earth al belima on this koach of the ma, of their statement of the ma. They're holding up the whole world with their humility. And if we said that Moshe Rabbeinu is Adam Mikol Adam, we should know that Adam himself, Adam HaRishon, the first man, was also pretty humble because he named himself. This great creation of Hashem, says the Shlach Kadosh, we know from Chazal, he named himself Adama because he came from the ground, he came from the afar. Va'afar lakol tihiyeh, as we say in our tefillah, he was able to humble himself as well, that he comes from that lowly part. He saw himself as coming from that lowly part, from the Adama itself. So we see the humility there as well in Adam HaRishon. So we have Adam, we have Moshe and Aharon, we have David, we have Abraham. They really understood that this ticket to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the love of Hashem for us is coming, and then the Shekhinah dwelling on those who make themselves humble. Now, regarding Adam HaRishon and Anava, we actually also have a hint to Anava and the Ekev with Adam HaRishon as well, from a powerful Midrash. This is in Vayikra Rabbah, in Perakaf, Siman Bet, says the Midrash. Reish Lakish b'shem Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya Amar, Tapuach akevo shel Adam HaRishon haya machhe gagal hama, the tapuach akevo, the ball, the heel of Adam Rishon, meaning the heel of Adam Rishon's leg, of his foot, the Ekev, which again, I remember, it's not going to be hint to anava, and the greatness coming from the anava. The Ekev of Adam Rishon, haya mechaheh galgal chama. It was able to even outshine the sun itself. And he has a whole mystical interpretation of Shlach Kadosh of the Chama being Chokhmah, and that Ekev Anava Yirat Hashem is even greater. We say Reshit Chokhmah Yirat Hashem. Asta Anava Ekev L'Suliata. It's a funny thing because you always want to get to the Rosh, you always want to get to the head, but now it seems like the Ekev, the lowly heel, or making ourselves lower, humbling ourselves, Anava, that's the ticket to everything. And we see the Ekev of Adam Rishon was able to outshine even the sun itself. That's the greatness of the Ekev. That's the greatness of the Anava. And he goes on to give example after example that the more lowly you are, this is true in all aspects of life, including Torah. The very Torah, says Chazal. And he's going to bring example after example that if you want to get to greatness, you have to have Anava. And he even says, if you want to kodesh pnima, if you want to get into the inner sanctuary of Hashem, if you want to get to the sodot of the Torah, you have to humble yourself. And then he says a beautiful, beautiful remez. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu, by the burning bush, by Yaster Moshe et panav, and Moshe hid back his face, ki yareh mahabit el Elohim, because he feared, he had awe of looking at Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak. So because of that, again, remember we spoke about this in the past, gave a three-way machloket, if this was good, this was bad, if this was neutral, but now the Shalah is going to learn in a positive way, because he was Vayaster Moshe et panav, he held his face back, as zocher mitabek, that was his way to be able to get close and to cling to Hashem, and then bischut vayaster panav zacha laklaster. And then Chazal tells, according to this opinion, that bischut of him hiding himself, which is a symbol of him being humble, he was zocher to that keren or that great light he's going to get in the future when he's going to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, can I see you? And Hashem's going to show him the backside, and he's going to glow, the keren or. He's only zocher to that, according to this opinion of the Gemara, because he was humble, vayaster panav. And he says, and this is symbolic as well, because if now humility is the symbol of the heel, the symbol of the Ekev, so that explains the pasuk when Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Shal na'alecha, take off your shoe. If you want to get to greatness, you got to reveal your Ekev. You got to show your foot. You got to show the bottom, because that bottom is the symbol to making yourself lowly, making yourself humble, and that's the ticket to all the greatness. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest anav of all, he's not going to wear shoes, he's going to reveal the Ekev. And says the Shla, this is also going to explain why now we can say when Moshe tells us, what does Hashem ask from us? Ma Hashem, what does Hashem desire from us? Ki'im yirah, just to have a little bit of awe of Hashem, just to have the awe. And says Chazal, yirah milta zutra hilagabe Moshe Rabbeinu. For Moshe Rabbeinu to say yirah, it's a very small, it's a simple, tiny thing. Of course it is. It's the Ekev. It's the bottom of the heel. It's making yourself the bottom of the heel. But that's going to be the ticket to the greatest of the great greatness, the Kedusha, the Shekhinah coming down. And then the footnote says nicely, quoting a different Shlach Kadosh, that's also why we know Moshe Rabbeinu now, he's going to have this anava, similar to Adam HaRishon, who could outshine the sun. So too Moshe Rabbeinu is the most anav mikol Adam. So what's going to be with Moshe Rabbeinu? He's going to be the Pnei HaChama. He himself is known to have the face of the sun. Most of the time we represent ourselves by the moon, where we try to glow back at HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But Moshe Rabbeinu was able to reach the level of panim bel panim. Moshe Rabbeinu, he himself can become like the sun itself. He becomes a Pnei Chama. Okay, so we spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu, we spoke about Rabbi Akiva, then the Shlach Kadosh goes on to Yaakov. Now we know Yaakov himself is another person who has that name Ekev in there. Says the pasuk, Vayavo Yaakov Shalem, and Yaakov came Shalem. Says the Gemara, Shalem begufo, Shalem b'mamano, Shalem b'torato. Yaakov is able to reach this level of shlemut, of completion. Why is he able to do that? He says, you want to know the ticket? Because the ticket of Yaakov says the Shlach Kadosh, Sod Shem Yaakov Moreh Alzeh v'yado ochezet ba'ekev, because he grabs onto the Ekev. And what's the Ekev? Ekev Anava. So Yaakov grabs onto Anava, as his name symbolizes the Ekev Anava. He's the Ekev. Therefore, he's able to reach the greatness of the greatness. He can have that shlemut that nobody else can seem to get to. Hine, inyana anava shayach lo'olam hazeh. Now, interesting enough, says the Shlach Kadosh, anava is only for olam hazeh. In olam haba, aval olam haba, neged zekenav kavod. There's going to be kavod for the skinny. Tzadikim yoshvin v'atorteim barashehen. The tzadikim are going to have crowns on their head. Ulechot tzadik mador lifek v'vodo. Everybody's going to have a special palace in the world to come. In the world to come, it seems to be, says Shlach Kadosh, anava is not a thing. Anava, says, are the letters anav hey. Humility is only in the hey. Hey is olam hazeh. Yud is olam haba. Hey is olam hazeh. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu created the olam hazeh with the letter hey, created olam haba with the letter yud. So we have over here, Yaakov has this language of the Ekev, but on the other hand, we have a yud at the very beginning, because it's also hinting that ultimately Yaakov is going to get to that level. He's going to get to that level of the olam haba. It's the yud Ekev. This world we spend working on the Ekev, and that's also yado ochezet. Yado, he's grabbing onto the Ekev, but yado is also otiyot yud. Yudo, his yud, ultimately he's going to get to that high level, which the Shlach Kadosh then relates to the name Yisrael when his name gets changed. That he's now wrestling with the angels and he's winning. This is a symbol of the Olam Haba. Yaakov is going to reach those highest levels, and those are going to be levels that says the Gemara that the mechitza that tzaddikim can reach, the level of tzaddik can reach in Olam Haba, is even greater than the angels. And the Gemara explains, this is as the pasuk says, Ka'et Yomar leYaakov Yisrael Ma Pa'al. They ask him, what did God do? How did you get to this level? So I think what he's hinting to is ma, this what? Nachnu ma pa'al el. It's the ma that pa'al el. Meaning, don't read it as a question. Oh, how did you get to this level? The angels are asking, how did you get closer than we did? But rather, ma pa'al el. Ma, it was your level to be able to reach the level of nachnu ma, to hold yourself on that humility. That's going to give you the greatness of the great. Then the Shlach Kadosh returns back to our Gemara, which said, "B'kol makom she'atam motzei gedulato shel Kadosh Baruch Hu." Anywhere you find the greatness of Hashem, that's where you're going to find the anava, the humility. But he says, I don't understand. Kasher, ma ze b'kol makom. What do you mean any place you find Hashem? What do you mean place? There's no place regarding Kadosh Baruch Hu. Halo yitbarach mekomo shel olam ve'en olam mekomo. Don't we know from Chazal that Hashem is the makom? Everything is, so to speak, ein ol milvado. So what do you mean wherever you find the Gdula of Hashem, in that makom, you're going to find yourself anava? Hashem is makomo shel olam. So he says, no, what's really going on over here? This is the zechut. Whoever is the anab, whoever is the humble, Hashem will bring him close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem is going to uplift him. And he gives raya after raya from Moshe Rabbeinu to Eldad and Medad, who in their humility didn't want to go and become the great Sanhedrin like everybody else. So the great Nevi'im like the others. So therefore Hashem gave them Nevuah that was not Pascha. Everybody else, there was limits. Theirs was like unlimited. The more you humble yourself, the greater of the great you're going to be able to reach. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, is going to bring the person up, bring them closer to Mekol Moshe Olam, and that's where you're going to find the anava. That the anava of Hashem, first off, part of it is the anava of Hashem. Look at how humble Hashem is. That Hashem is going to say, "Oh, you humbled yourself. I'm going to now bring you closer to me. I don't want to be by myself. I want to bring you close to me." But also in the Mekol Moshe Olam, that's where you're going to find the anavim. That's where you're going to find the humble ones, because that's where they're going to be brought up. And then with that, we can return to our pasuk and our parasha. V'ata Yisrael, and now Moshe tells us, Jewish people now, Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel me'imcha. What does Hashem ask from us, if not just for anava? But look at it better. Ma Hashem, what does Hashem ask from us? No, read it differently. Read it. V'tzedomar shoel mimcha ma shu inyan ha'anava. Ma Hashem Elokecha. Hashem is desiring. Now, what is he desiring? He's desiring the ma. K'moshe Moshe v'Aaron. Nachnu ma. He says, you want that great zechut? You want to be V'ata Yisrael? You want to reach the level of Yisrael, which is Yaakov, was able to rise himself up, to wrestle with angels and win, like we mentioned from the Chazal, that now we're going to come into closer mechitzot than even the angels. And then the Shlach Kadosh closes that pasuk, V'zeu ki'im lira. And what does it mean? And this is what he means. Also, what Hashem wants is ki'im, is for us to lira. But he says, im is also otiyot Aharon Moshe. Hashem wants us to be like Aharon Moshe. Nachnu ma. What are we? Humble ourselves. The more you humble yourself, the greater you're going to be able to reach. V'ata Yisrael ma. He says this concept of ma, of saying that we are nachnu ma being this level of anava. He says that's why Chazal in our tefillot put shmone maim. We put 8 ma's in our tefillah when we say ma nahnu, ma hayenu, ma kochenu, ma gvurotenu, ma yishwatenu, ma nomar lefanecha. That was different girsas of exactly how many to have. But he, in his girsah, in his nusach, there's ma anu, ma hayenu. He has 8 times it says the word ma in the tefillah, because Chazal are telling us we have to have this level of the ma, this level of the nachnu ma, this level of the humility. But interesting, we have to be humble as humble can be. But we spoke not too long ago now from Tisha B'Av about that level of anava, too much anava leading to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. So now we have to get ourselves back into the world of anava. And we just saw how important Ekev anava. It's the Ekev, it's the greatest, it's the heights. But interestingly enough, if we're going to go with this number 8, there's also another Gemara. There's a Gemara in Sotah, it's Daf Hey Amud Aleph, Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi Amar Rav, Tamid Chacham tzarich sheyeh bo echad mishmona b'shminit. A Tamid Chacham has to have one eighth of an eighth, which of what? Of ga'ava, say the Mefarshim. That a Talmid Chacham has to have a little bit of a backbone, a little bit of a ga'ava in order to be successful, in order to be able to teach, in order to go. But interesting, the number, based on the way the Shlal learns, it's an eighth of an eighth. So we have ourselves the number 8, the 8 maz. It's anava. But ultimately, he takes one step back over here. We have to have a little bit left for the Torah, a little bit of a backbone. And the other Gemara that we mentioned earlier, which spoke about the Nachnuma. It says, maybe with Torah, we should also speak less and not. No, when it comes to Torah, we have to go out of our way and we have to teach and we have to get out there and make those shurim and inspire other people. So there is a little bit of a level we have to step it up in a little bit less of an anav kind of way. But as we see from this Torah, the ikar of the ikar and the greatness of the great is going to come from that level of the anava, of the Ekev, which ultimately is the Yirat Shamayim, and that's our parasha. Shabbat Shalom.